and welcome to Up on Toppenish. I'm your host, Sean Davido, and this is our first edition of Up on Toppenish, and I'm very lucky to have a very special guest, Mayor Elpidia Saavedra from Toppenish. Thank you very much for joining me, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for having me, Sean.
Now, we're going to jump right into it. I've been with the city for a few months now, almost a year. I would like to know more about you. Tell me about you and a little bit about why you decided to run for public office and be on the Toppenish City Council.
You know, that's a great question. Something that I've kind of thought about over the years. And initially, to be completely honest, I felt like it was kind of a divine calling. I was driving to work one morning to Yakima, and I heard on News Talk KIT that there were some openings in Toppenish. And so I really felt in my heart that it was something that I could, look into and try to do. And so that afternoon during my lunch hour, I drove down to the City Hall there in Yakima, got the application, filled it out, turned it in. And then I came home and I told my husband, honey, I'm running for city council. And he's like, what the heck? So it was just one of those moments of inspiration. I really felt that if I could serve the city in any capacity, I wanted that experience and that opportunity.
Now, let's talk about, you are the mayor. Let's talk about what the mayor does for the city of Toppenish and what those duties are. Now, it's a council manager form of government. So you're just one of the council members, but you serve as mayor. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Correct. And you said it perfectly. We are a council manager governance. And so basically every 2 years, the current council appoints a mayor. And so I was appointed as mayor last year. So this is my second year. And I was really surprised because although I was thinking that in the future, I wanted to be able to have that experience, I didn't think it was going to happen when it did. And so I was really honored to have been appointed by the council as mayor and to be given that opportunity when it did happen. And as far as my duties, you were asking about my duties, was that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What does the mayor do? What is your role as mayor?
So like you were mentioning, although our city is set up in a way in which individual council members do not have any like supreme power over one another or over the decisions made for the city, any decisions that are made are done as one body. And so, for example, the unique thing about that is that if there are some council members that may not agree about a certain issue, at the very end, we all have to vote. And if the majority of the council votes for an issue or against an issue, that is the vote that is ratified. And so if they agree to something, then the idea behind that is that we're all going to work together to make sure that we can accomplish that goal because the majority of the council decided that that was the best way to go for the city. And so as the mayor, I have some other little responsibilities. So for example, I'm considered the chair of the meeting. And so it's my responsibility to make sure that the meeting can flow easily, that we can get through the scheduled agenda, that we encourage the council members to be able to stay on task. And we all have the ability to be able to express our opinions or our views or ask questions. And then at the very end, come together and make a decision. As mayor, I also have the privilege, and which I really do consider it a privilege, is to work with local community organizations, even county organizations, to look for things that are going to benefit our city. So for example, recently I went to the ribbon cutting for the new crime lab here in the Lower Valley, which was something that I had really been promoting from the get-go. I was one of the people really pushing it and encouraging other cities to jump on board for that, for the benefit of our residents and really for the benefit of everyone in the county. And then also I have the opportunity to talk to state legislators, local leaders as well. I work with the commissioners about trying to get funding for the city and also for some of our events and some of the programs that we have to have in order for us to be able to function as a city.
And you also get to go and represent the city at many of the events and MC some events, and you're the face of the council, so to say, right?
Yes, that is correct. And that's awesome because there's been a few times, for example, at the rodeo when they have they're beginning the rodeo. I have been invited in the past to go and just give a welcome to people. But there's other organizations that are coming together, for example, at the casino, and they're going to have an event. There's people coming from all over the state or even the country. A lot of the times they like to be able to have some sort of recognition or some sort of welcome from the mayor. And so I really enjoyed that because I have the opportunity to connect with other people from other communities and just get their insights and their suggestions on what we can do for our city to just improve it.
And we are honored to have you in that position. So
thank you.
We're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about what kind of issues have you dealt with on the city council. Toppenish does have some issues. It has challenges. Talk about some of the issues that you've had to deal with as a council member and as mayor.
You know, I love that question because I feel like when I first ran for city council, I really was under the wrong impression. And so it took me a lot of training. I have taken quite a few classes, quite a few trainings on, for example, the roles of a council member or the roles of the chair or the mayor. How to work as a team on the city council and what our responsibilities are and really what our purpose is. And so when I ran for city council, at the time we had many of our police officer positions that were open. One of my main concerns was security in our city. I feel like every resident should be able to live in their community and feel safe. And so we can't do that without a strong, having a good, strong police department. And then also the fire department being able to make sure that they have the support that they need from their local government. And so when I went in, I was thinking I was going to go in guns a-blazing. I was just going to go and demand change. And so what happened was that I began to see things that many people out in the community do not get to see as clearly. And so I began to see the actual budget that we have and the limitations and the resources that we have to our disposal. And I also began to learn about the resources that we don't have. There are some things that we do not have as a city that other cities do have. For example, we don't have as many residents as Union Gap and Yakima. So we don't have the same amount of funding that they may get from the state or federal level. We may not have the same resources. And so one of the biggest issues that over the years that I have seen and had to deal with firsthand and just try to litigate with is the utilities. You know, we do have a high utility rate. It has been a concern for many people in our community. And of course, I feel it too. I live here. I have raised my family here. And so it's something that we all see, that we all feel. But it wasn't until I was on the council and I began to see, okay, what our budget is and how much money we have and how much money we don't have. And really the reality is that because our city is an older city and over the years we have had to take out loans, those loans need to be paid. And the reality is that it gets paid by all of the residents all together. And so that is where some of that revenue goes to, is to be able to do upgrades to our sewer systems, our infrastructure, our roads. And we don't get money. Some people think that we get a lot of money from the government, which that is not the case, you know, and the government never stops taxing. So the federal government, the state level government, they never stop taxing, and those taxes include taxes to the cities as well. And so our taxes are going up, what we have to pay goes up. And so where do we get that money from? You know, and so a lot of the times we have to make difficult decisions that also impact myself. Like, and that's been one of the toughest challenges, is that inside, deep in my heart, I would love to be able to reduce the utility rate by, 50%. But the reality is that if we did that as a city, the question would be, okay, what are we going to lose? Are we going to lose half of our police force? Are we going to lose half of our firefighters? Or are we going to get rid of the swimming pool? Or are we going to cut back on city staff? You know, that was another issue. Over the years, we've seen that it's been really hard to retain staff, people that are qualified, people that know how to do certain jobs and do them well. And one of the things that we had seen as a council is that we were behind. We were, as for example, compared to other cities, our size, and we were at the lower end of the scale when it came to pay. So we had to make changes there. Was it hard? Yes. But it's what we needed to do in order to be able to retain the people that we need. And so we saw that throughout our entire government within the city of Toppenish. So we're talking about administrators, we're talking about mid-level and entry-level staff and police and fire. And so some things we're just obligated to do, and it's hard. And sometimes we're put in a position in which we have to make those hard decisions. But at the end of the day, I truly feel that we do it for the benefit of our city. Like, I want to make sure that Toppenish can be around for another 100 years. And so we have to all work together to do that.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, Toppenish is more than 100 years old. And some of the pipes are literally wood. And they just crumble and they needed to be replaced. And things break as time goes on, things break and they need to be replaced. And that's some of the challenges that Toppenish has faced in the past.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you know, another thing that a lot of people aren't aware of is that it's not like it was before 50 years ago. People think, well, why can't you just get a plumber and put in a new pipe? Well, that's not how it is. We have environmental agencies now. We have federal agencies. We have local state agencies that are looking at us with a microscope and making sure that we are doing everything according to the rules that they set. And sometimes they pass laws that require cities to do certain things, but yet they don't provide the cities with the extra funding. And so the cities are then required to implement these new policies, these new procedures, but yet they are left with having to find the revenue or the money from a different source other than the government.
I want to change gears again, and let's talk about some of the positive. Let's talk about community pride. Toppenish has a tremendous amount of community pride. I've grown up around this community. I grew up just outside of Toppenish.
Nice.
My mother grew up in Toppenish, so I know all about Toppenish community pride, from the sports teams to the events that happen in Toppenish. Talk about your experience with community pride. We just recently had National Night Out. What a great event. What a great event for Toppenish.
Absolutely. And, you know, we really are looking for ways to continue to increase the opportunities to showcase the city of Toppenish. So I was kind of thinking about that throughout the day, and it puts a huge smile on my face. I don't know. Can you see it? Can you see it, Sean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It puts a huge smile on my face because as a person that was born in the city of Toppenish, raised in the city of Toppenish, you know, I have 9 siblings. My mother was an immigrant. She was a single mom for most of her of my life, of when we were kids. We grew up as farm workers. I was picking asparagus outside of Toppenish at 4 a.m. when I was 10 years old with my siblings. And so, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get emotional.
It's okay. It's your story.
Know, yeah, and so that is where the Toppenish pride comes in. Because I think if I don't love my city, if I don't work to protect what our city represents, what it means, how it looks, what it can provide for the residents, then who am I to complain? Who am I to point fingers and say, well, you're not doing a good job with this or with that, when I do absolutely nothing to try to help? And so I think that there's so much in our city that's absolutely beautiful. For example, I even made a list. So some of the things I want to touch base on is the local food that we have. We have El Charrito, we have Mi Pueblito, we have Las Palomas. We have all of these amazing little family-owned restaurants, some of them that have been around for over 30 years in our city. And it's so amazing because I love the fact that people are invested in the city. They want to be able to provide services for our residents. They want to be here locally, and they want to be part of the community. We also have like the Toppenish Safeway that has also been around a long time. We have, the Blue Sky Market with their wonderful flour tortillas that my family absolutely enjoys. And then we have our parks. We have been putting so much effort in improving our parks and keeping them beautiful and clean for the people and the children, right? The children that live in our city. We have the murals. The murals, I've always said that the murals are like a gem of our city. We have that beautiful flag that I think it's one of the tallest, right? If not in Eastern Washington.
The tallest in the state, as I understand it, 165 feet. So
you see, isn't that extraordinary? And that is
amazing.
In our town. That is in Toppenish. And I love being at the park and seeing our beautiful, beautiful flag flying and just waving. I mean, there really is a lot of pride in that because Toppenish did that. And if you dig a little bit deeper, you will find that community members came together to rally around a project that's going to bring something beautiful to our town. And, and I think that that's something that we need to think about individually as residents. Recently, there was one resident that reached out to me and she was sharing that some information about a parade that they had in a different city for their wrestlers. And so she was saying, gosh, it would be so neat to be able to do something like that here because wrestling for Toppenish is like the other crown, my son was a wrestler. My daughter, Emma, was a wrestler. And so, but my son started wrestling when he was 3 years old, when the clubs were just getting started. He knows Pepe firsthand. Pepe saw him grow up and the other coaches. And so, and he wrestled all through high school and now he's wrestling for his university as well. And so there's so much pride in that because when it comes to the sports that we have, sports teach our kids to be disciplined. It teaches them to work hard. It teaches them to have endurance and to have focus, right? And so you cannot be an athlete without giving everything that you have and still being able to balance their personal lives, right? Their academic lives. And so Toppenish has Toppenish wrestling, and they have done an amazing job making it this amazing program. And so I was encouraging this parent. I said, hey, you know what? You would have my full support. And all it takes is for someone to take the initiative. I told her, hint, hint, right? And you know what she said? She said, you know what? You're absolutely right. And I think I'm going to definitely look into that for this coming year. And she has my support for that because I think if people can come together and say, hey, what can we do in the city of Toppenish that will help bring people to come to the city, to enjoy the city, and also just to kind of get to know it. I think that's something that we can do more as a community, and we can have people come together and plan that. A lot of the times people want to see it, and it's like in church, right? They're always like, oh, why don't we do this, pastor? Why don't we do that, pastor? They're telling their priest, why don't we do this? But then the priest says, okay, who's going to volunteer? And nobody says anything. Or the pastor says, yes, are you going to lead it? And then they're like, oh, me? What? No. But we can't do that. We have to be willing to give our time, our money, our energy. I mean, I work over 50 hours a week. Okay. And that doesn't include the time that I invest for the city. Okay. People think I make a lot of money from the city, but I don't.
Right.
And I also travel. I travel and I do summits and conventions, and I speak at different events and things. And I'm just like, but the city of Toppenish has always been a priority for me because, again, if I am not willing to invest my time, my energy, my money into my own community, then who am I, or why would I think I have a right to complain? We have some amazing local organizations, right? We have Toppenish Farm Workers Clinic that was born in the city of Toppenish, born in this city. It is like the mecca of Farm Workers Clinic, our beautiful clinic. We have the Mural Society. We have the Community Action Network. So we have the Food Bank. And so we have all of these other organizations that are just invested. They're invested here. And I think as residents, we need to be willing and have a desire to be part of that and just to keep Toppenish beautiful.
And I sincerely appreciate your passion for Toppenish. I understand
Thank you.
You make me emotional just listening to you talk. The passion that you bring to the city and to the council is really impressive, and I want to thank you for that. I feel the same
Thank
way.
you.
I'm 100% on board, as I say. I think Toppenish is one of the most beautiful places in the world. When I was growing up, we would go to Portland and visit my aunt, and we'd come over the hill into Toppenish, and my mom would always say, "We're home," and you'd see the sugar beet factory, and it was just, I always remember it, and I always say it when I come over that hill and I first
Yes.
see Toppenish. That's home. So
Yes, we see the lights, right? Especially if you're coming in at night and you see all the lights, you're
absolutely,
like, oh, my
yeah,
town.
absolutely. So I want to thank you for taking the time. This is, as you said, it's in the evening after work. You're here spending your own time to talk about our community and share your story with the community. So I want to thank you for joining me today.
Awesome. It is my pleasure. I look forward to doing this again and just encouraging the people of our town, of our city to just come together and really be prepared to be invested and to be willing. So thank you so much, John. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining me, and thank you all for joining us.
Let's get started.